Hi, welcome to Lights Camera Author. I'm Jim Juno, and of course, this is the place where we talk with authors who write books about show business. And I have with me today a very, very special man. It's the great Jerry Adler. And if you've watched The Sopranos, you will recognize the name immediately. Mr. Adler, you played Hesh.
I played Hesh on there, but
Hesh.
you wouldn't ever recognize me. I've lost a lot of weight since then.
Well, I mean, did you eat a lot I imagine you ate a lot of pasta during those times with the with the being in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
it. But I gotta ask you, your new book is called Too Funny for Words, and
right.
it's published by Viva, and it's coming out. I believe it's coming out now, correct? I mean, it's
They told me it's coming out May 21st.
May 21st now. Okay, dates always change and here and there and stuff. So May 21st.
I'm dying to see it. I'm dying to pick up the book. It's so odd. It's my first book, so it's so odd being able to hold the book in your hand that you read. It's kind of weird.
I can imagine.
Oh,
I can really
yeah,
imagine.
very
And
exciting.
And this book, I mean, I enjoyed reading it because if if you're a fan of going backstage and finding private stories, Jerry Adler's book is the one for you because
All the
Mr.
wacky things that happen backstage.
Hmm?
All the wacky things that happen backstage.
Exactly. I mean, and I'm gonna read some of the names here, and I just want to get your thoughts on them. Now I'm going to start the very, very first one. Orson Welles.
Right.
One these are, I mean, and let everybody know these names that I'm going to read are legends in their own in their not just in their time, but in any time, just as just as Jerry Adler is. So Orson Welles, this is where you first started out, isn't it?
Well, I was a stage manager at the time on Broadway. As a matter of fact, the first half of the book is about my stage manager life on Broadway and all the things that happened there. So that story came when I was the stage manager of My Fair Lady on Broadway, and I decided I wanted to produce a play by Orson Welles that had just been produced on the London stage, got great reviews, and I wanted to bring it into New York, and I wanted to become a producer. So I went after Orson to see if I could get the rights to do the play in New York.
And he did not meet you in New York. You had to go overseas, didn't you?
I chased him about halfway around the world. Started out in Rome, and then went over to Zagreb, Yugoslavia, and then finally back to New York. It was a hell of a trip.
And I mean, you racked up some frequent flyer miles on that one. I'm gonna,
Yeah.
and this was not this was before the time of the internet and before the time of iPhones, and
Oh, yeah.
you had to basically just track him down.
No,
Uh,
you had
what
to
was
know
he?
where you were going. You had to make appointments to meet somewhere. Otherwise, you would never find them.
But you finally found him, and he uh he wouldn't do the play at first, right? I mean, he didn't want to work in New York, I believe.
He finally gave me the rights to produce the play, but he didn't want to be an actor in it. He said he wouldn't appear on the Broadway stage as long as a certain critic on the New York Times was on the New York. Of course, he was an enemy of Orson Welles, and so Orson didn't want to appear on Broadway. He gave me the rights to do the play, though.
Yes, exactly. Now in your
Reluctant,
in the
reluctant.
you're lucky. In the first chapter, I want to. There's another name I want to mention because everybody knows Marilyn Monroe. You actually got to work a little bit with her, didn't you?
Very odd instance because I just got out of the army and I was working on a play with a great playwright named Sidney Kingsley, and we wound up one night at the after work. We went to the Des Artistes restaurant to have a little snack, and Marilyn was there with her then partner, Milton Green. Remember, she had this argument with 20th Century Fox, and she was going to start her own production company with Milton Green. So they recognized Sidney Kingsley, and we wound up the four of us sitting at the table and talking about Broadway. And of course, Sidney wanted Marilyn to appear in his play on Broadway. And so he was telling me how wonderful it would be for him to have her do his play, and she agreed to read the play. And Milton invited us to his studio where they just completed they did a big, wonderful camera shoot out in the desert in New Mexico, and he wanted us to see the slides. So we all jumped in a cab. In those days, there was a jump seat that you could pull out for extra people to sit on. And so I wound up sitting in the jump seat, staring right at Marilyn Monroe. We're playing Nisies with Marilyn Monroe. I was a bit agog at the time.
I can imagine so. I mean, that's something a lot of people would give their right eye for.
It was wild.
I tell you what, now you also, and let's flash forward a little bit here with you also got to meet people like Barbara Streisand. What was that like working for her or working with her? I'm sorry.
I'd actually worked with her. I was doing a series of auditions for a show called Bravo Giovanni, where young singers would come on and audition for a role in the show. And this young woman came in the stage door. She was dressed kind of like she was dressed like a hippie. And she gave me her name. And when it came her turn, I went out onto the stage and I called out to the producer and director who was sitting out front. I said, Barbara Streisand, no piano. And she came out behind me and sat on a stool there. And everybody was talking and cheering and chattering. And there was a couple of people. There was a woman up in the balcony who was cleaning up from the performance the night before. And she started to sing. And it was unbelievable. Never heard a sound like that before.
Yeah,
And
and somebody couldn't see past her nose, correct?
quieted the house, and everybody was absolutely astounded by the sound of this voice. And she left, and I went down there and said, "What do you think of that? That was something, huh?" And the director of the show, a man named Stanley Craig, said, "Nice voice, but did you catch that nose? Forget it."
Oh my gosh.
Anyway,
Now,
she did the part in Bravo Giovanni. She did better than that. She went on to get a part in Funny Girl.
didn't do bad, you know. She Brenda Vaccaro, I believe, beat her out for that role, didn't she?
What?
Brenda Vaccaro?
Brenda got the part in Bravo, and it ran only a month. And Barbara got the part in Funny Girl, which ran for a career.
Now, when you met Marlene Dietrich, you thought, I mean, she was dressed like a cleaning lady. Is that correct? Because she was cleaning the floor?
This is a time when don't forget, I'm a 25-year-old guy, and I'm going to meet Marlene Dietrich, who's one of the great, probably great, film stars of all time. And I was going to stage manage her one-woman show. And the first time I met her was backstage at the Golden Theater. And I walked into, and there she was on her hands and knees cleaning the bathroom.
What the
She was,
hell?
she was one of those neat nuts. I mean, she was cleaning on her hands and knees. This
Oh,
is
she was a
Marlene,
germaphobe.
unbelievable. Great lady, by the way. We used to sit around and tell me great stories about Hollywood. And I'm a guy from Brooklyn listening to this. It was unbelievable.
It
You
sounds that way. My
meet
gosh.
when you're a young guy, it's really extraordinary.
You know, did you realize at the time when you were 25 years old that these are people whose names are going to live forever?
Well, they were extraordinary names at the time, and I met some great, of course, the greatest one I'd seen a movie called The Lion in Winter, starring Katharine Hepburn.
And Peter
And,
O'Toole. Yeah.
and I got to be interviewed by her. She was doing a musical and was looking for a stage manager, and heard about me, and she arranged for me to meet her at her brownstone house in Brooklyn, in Manhattan, and you're going to meet Katharine Hepburn, 26 years old. And I walk in there, and there's the star of The Lion in Winter. It's staggering. I don't know if people you get kind of crazy when they meet celebrities, but these are people whose names you hear all your whole life, and then you get a chance to meet them in person, and it's astounding. It kind of puts you a little bit, and it's amazing.
I
But
tell
that was
you,
part of my career, meeting all these great people.
who was the favorite person you've ever met?
What
Who was the favorite person you've ever met?
the
Or
favorite?
yes,
Jack Benny.
Jack Benny, who when you first saw him, and I read this part in your book. When you first saw him, you were not you were worried about it, I guess.
Well, he was a man in I think he was in his 70s or late 70s. And he was kind of, in those days, seven was an old man.
Hmm.
Uh, I he was going to do a one man show on Broadway, and I was going to stage manage this thing. And then I was saying to myself, I don't know if this man can do the rigor of doing 8 performances a week. And it's only him on stage. He's got to go out there for a full hour and entertain the people. And it was kind of, I was kind of afraid that he wasn't going to make it. I thought he was kind of frail. And the first time we did it, the opening night in New York, he was standing, he kind of shuffled over to right to my stage manager's desk, waiting for it. And he said, when you want me to go out on the stage, just tap me on the shoulder and I'll know that's my cue to go out. I said, okay. And the house lights went down and the music started. His great theme song started. And he was kind of had his arm on the desk, kind of resting on the desk. And I reached over and I tapped him on the shoulder. And it was the most amazing thing. Suddenly he rose up and became Jack Benny, a much younger man. He strode out onto the stage and killed the people. And I didn't think he was going to make it off stage. And it was amazing. I'm telling you, 30 or 40 years fell off of him in an instant. The moment I touched his shoulder, it was extraordinary.
He also gave you a gift at the end, didn't he?
He gave me a money clip. You believe this?
A
This
money clip.
who was known as the biggest miser in the history of the world, before he left, presented me with a money clip, a golden thing with my initials on it and his autograph on the back end. So Jack Benny gave me a money clip.
Wow.
That's
You
kind of a little ironic.
it is. It really is ironic. I mean, it's amazing.
Yep.
And now were you the stage manager for My Fair Lady when it first came up on Broadway?
Yeah, from the original,
Yeah. And you when you first pitched
1956.
when you first pitched the idea they were going to make a musical out of Pygmalion, you didn't have a you
I
didn't
didn't I didn't think it was a great idea.
yeah.
I was in California at the time doing a road. I was on the road with a play, and I got a telegram. In those days, you had telegrams that said, "Come on back to New York. We're doing a show, doing musical version of Pygmalion." I goes, "Pygmalion, musical version of Pygmalion." I couldn't believe it. I didn't think it was going to be a much of a hit. How wrong it can be.
Rex Harrison was fantastic, wasn't he?
Rex and Julie were. She was a young girl at the time. They had only done one Broadway show. She had
Uh,
a
oh, that's
second.
right.
And,
Julie. Yeah. But yeah, and but was it Rex Harrison who got who got lost backstage? You had to go get him?
He was he was kind of he was new at this Broadway musical stuff thing. He was kind of thrown by the orchestra and playing and all of that. He didn't realize. And he had a song at the end of the show called "I'm Going to Accustom to Your Face," and he was on a unit, what we would call the front stoop of the building unit, and he sang the song in the house, and the stage lights would fade, and he was left in the dark on the applause. People were, applauding, and he had no idea where he was. This was opening night in New Haven, and I was behind the unit waiting for him to come out so I could lead him around, and he never showed up. And so I peeked around the other side, and he was staring into the dark, and I knew he was absolutely lost. So I grabbed his arm and he went, "What? He said, I said, "It's okay, it's Jerry. I'll take you where I'll take you." He said, "Okay, okay. Take me somewhere." He had no idea where.
Now I'm forgetting which play it was, but you delivered a baby after a play.
That's the,
With
that same show, that same place, New Haven.
My Fair Lady, right? I mean, it was.
Where we were packing up at the end of the run. We were on our way to Philadelphia. And I was closing up my desk. The prep guys were loading the show out onto the trucks. And I heard I heard what I thought was a moaning sound, a crying sound. So I walked out onto the stage and looked out into the darkness of the theater, and I heard a woman's voice. She was kind of sobbing. So I jumped off the stage onto the floor, and I found her on the floor and over on the side where the box seats were. And she was lying there. And I said, "Can I help you? Can I help you?" She kept saying, "Oh my God, my baby, my baby, my baby." I said, "What's such a baby?" She said, "Well, my baby, what am I going to do? It's my baby. It's coming." I said, "What?" "Yeah," she said, my baby." She was going to give birth right
She was
there.
in labor.
Her husband had rushed off to get the car to drive her to the hospital, I guess. And there she was laying on the floor, and the baby was coming.
Yeah.
I threw off my jacket, put it underneath my rear end over there, and the baby just slid right out
Oh my gosh.
into my jacket. And I was holding, I couldn't believe what was going on here.
That is
And,
amazing.
and
And somewhere there's a grown man or grown person out there with your jacket.
she was moaning and I was groaning and he was groaning. And the husband finally came and they scooped everything up and ran off with it. But I realized an hour later, they stole my jacket. Baby was wrapped in my jacket.
Oh my God. Uh,
These are, these are the crazy things that happen to you on a stage manager.
I want to throw one more name at you, and then I want to talk about The Sopranos because that in itself is a story. Woody Allen, you auditioned for a play on hit for his, and you were
Hmm.
in his movie. You were in his movie Manhattan Murder Mystery.
I was auditioning for that movie.
Is that what it was? Okay, and
I was at the time stage managing a soap opera in California. And I got a call. Would I like to audition for Woody Allen? And of course, it was a great idea. And went to his hotel. He had his office at a hotel at the time. And I auditioned for his movie in this hotel, in this living room. And he was behind the couch. I didn't even see him. All you could see was a little bit of the top of his head. And the woman who was with me, his assistant, who I was reading with, she said, don't, don't ask him hello, don't say anything, just, he's very shy, he doesn't want anybody to talk to him, just read the script. And I read the first scene, and the head popped up, and there I could kind of in the dark, I was underneath the floor lamp, and he was in the dark. And it went on again, 5 scenes. We went through 5 scenes, back and forth, and back and forth. I read the whole play. I read the whole movie. Went off, and she said to me, wait here a minute. After I left, I went out into the alcove. She said, wait here. And she went into it. I waited for a while. She came out and said, are you going to be in New York for a while? I said, yes, I am. Yeah. And she said, I'll let you know if anything happens. She said, and she took my phone number down. And when I was staying at my brother's place, and the phone rang, and she says, "Oh, we'd like you to go to the costume people and have your measurements taken." So I said, "Hey, man, my measurements taken. I got the part." My brother and I we were celebrating. We went over, and the next morning I went over to the costume people, and I was kind of strutting around. I got a part in this great movie. And the guy who was doing the measurements said, "You're talking about Woody Allen's movie, huh?" I said, yeah, I got a part. He said, don't buy the convertible yet. They measure everybody who comes here from California because they don't want to have to fly around again for measurements.
Oh,
Of course, then the movie got delayed for that whole terrible thing about he and his wife and
a stepdaughter. Yeah.
uh,
But the movie did get made, and
it's canceled. But 6 or 7 weeks later, he got picked up again. And I
now
did, and I did the part. I actually did get the part.
now you played Hesh and on the Sopranos, which a lot of people to this day is talking about, even though it's been almost 20 years since the show was on.
I'm trying to remember when the last episode played. What was it? 10 years ago?
I think
Maybe even more.
may,
20 years ago?
maybe more. Yeah,
20 years ago? This is
amazing.
an episode of a television show that closed 20 years ago, and people are still talking about it all the
Yes,
time. Have you seen the last scene of Sopranos? I
and
was as surprised as everybody else. I didn't know how it was going to end.
and you got the part. You were in the hospital.
I
You
had just
you yeah, gallbladder, I believe.
all that thing. I was laying in the hospital, yeah, and the phone rang, and David Chase. Now, I had done a thing called Northern Exposure years before that David had written. So he remembered me from there, and he had a part in the opening pilot of The Sopranos. And he wanted to know if I would do this cameo thing for him. And I said, well, for you, do anything, sure. So he arranged for me to do this. I did 2 scenes, I think it was. And I was dressed in kind of loungy clothes, thank God, because I was all bandaged up at the time. He didn't know I was in the hospital. If he had known I was coming out of the hospital to do this pilot, he never would have given me the part.
But he
And
got yeah.
I did the 2 scenes, yeah. But I said, you have to remember as he was leaving the hospital room, I said, there's one problem about all of this. I, I can't sing, I'm told that. No, it's not an opera. It's not about singers. It's about a New Jersey mob.
And you also, people may remember you also from The Good Wife. You were on that show pretty regularly too, weren't you?
So many crazy things. It's hard to remember all of them.
I remember you from one of my favorite episodes of Law and Order.
Oh,
You
really?
you played a judge.
I bet a judge would put some Waterson in jail.
Yes, you put Sam Waterston in jail. I remember that Jack McCoy got
It
cited for contempt.
was a wonderful part.
I know you were so good at that one, and I really like when they said we like to I like to talk to Jerry Adler, and I said, I know this guy. I know this man.
That's right. You remember me from Graham and from the judge thing.
From the
You
Law and Order. Yes, uh-huh. And I was like, yes, I remember that's Judge Marks. That's who that is, you know. So
had a good memory. Wow.
thank you. I tell you what, it's I try to keep it fresh. But
Well, it's one in this business because you get to do a lot of strange and odd things, different roles, different places, different lives. It's
yeah,
it's it's wonderful.
well,
Keep don't forget I was when I did that judge thing, I was in my 70s.
you looked great. You looked fantastic.
People in their 70s are home with their feet up on the ottoman having a marvelous gin and tonic and being retired. I'm out there slaving away as an actor.
Are you're still acting at age 95?
95. If the phone rings, I'm on my way.
Fantastic. Well, Jerry Adler is the author, and the book is Too Funny for Words,
And
published by Viva.
I think you're going to enjoy it.
I think you will. I think they will too.
Be published by Simon and Schuster. Not bad.
Yes,
Not bad.
Mr. Mr.
For
Adler, I really appreciate you taking time.
my pleasure.